If this turned out to be true, it would be the biggest story of all time. This whole subject has come out of the fringe and into the mainstream.
If it could change the meaning of our existence, it could inspire us to venture into space. It could teach us of new technologies and scientific insights.
Half of humanity believes in the existence of intelligent alien life.
For decades, unidentified flying objects, or UFOs, have been the subject of intrigue. But since members of Congress heard stunning testimonies from former intelligence officers back in July, as NASA launched its report into UAPs, unidentified anomalous phenomena, is it time to take the subject more seriously? UFO expert Nick Pope led the UK government's investigation into UAPs for 3 years from 1991. Why has NASA decided now is the right time to do this report into UAPs?
Well, for some years, the US government has been taking UAP much more seriously, and a number of whistleblowers have come forward. But NASA was saying, we're not interested, we don't investigate. And of course, a lot of conspiracy theorists think otherwise. But essentially, Bill Nelson, who heads up NASA, used to sit on the Senate Armed Services Committee, and he got a classified briefing. And then when he got appointed to run NASA, he said, look, we should be doing this.
Former high-ranking intelligence official David Grush was one of 3 US military whistleblowers who testified under oath in Congress on UAPs. Grush's statements grabbed headlines around the world.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to.
He is who he says he is. And he did verifiably sit on the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force. So we're in an extraordinary time right now. A lot of people are trying to verify his claims. And yes, he uses the phrase non-human intelligences and the term biologics. There's a lot to digest there, but the magnitude of all this, if it turns out to be true, is such that Congress and others do need to take this seriously and try and verify it. And I've heard literally in the last few days that other whistleblowers have already come forward and are in the process of coming forward. So this isn't just a single individual making an unverified claim. This is pieces of a puzzle beginning to come together, and it's mighty bizarre. One other thing about that term, non-human intelligences, some people in the US Congress have clearly bought into that big time, because Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer co-authored a 64-page amendment that's going to go into the 2024 defense bill, and that uses the phrase non-human intelligences over 20 times. So this will effectively, if enacted, force the US government to come clean about any information or hardware or biological material that it has. So this is unprecedented.
The most interesting data that the government has is classified. So I haven't seen it, the public didn't see it. And unfortunately, we see blurry images, inconclusive data available to us so far.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude.
The question is, what else does the government has? And there was a testimony by 3 eyewitnesses at the House of Representatives in July that indicated that perhaps the government may have information, materials related to potential extraterrestrial spacecraft, but we haven't seen it. And so as of now, it's just a hearsay. And my hope is that the US Congress will dig deeper and reveal if there is any such materials or information, because anything interstellar should be shared with all humans on Earth, because it started its journey long before humans existed on Earth. It doesn't care about how we split the land on this rock that we were born on. So it's not a matter of national security. And my hope is that we will learn more about it.
Professor A.D. Loeb is the director for the Institute of Theory and Computation at Harvard University and has been investigating rocks that may not be from our solar system. This led him on an expedition to Papua New Guinea.
Back in 2014, the US government satellites detected a fireball from an object 0.5 meter in size that collided with Earth. And what was unusual about it is its high speed. We calculated that it was actually from outside the solar system, and it was moving at a speed of 60 kilometers per second, faster than 95% of all stars in the vicinity of the sun relative to the local frame of the Milky Way galaxy. And moreover, it had unusual material strength, tougher than all space rocks cataloged by NASA over the past decade, 272 of them. So that raised the possibility that it may be a Voyager-like meteor. Imagine our own spacecraft leaving the solar system and colliding with a planet like the Earth. It would appear as a meteor of unusual material strength and unusual speed. And to find out its nature, I decided to lead an expedition to the Pacific Ocean. We went there and we retrieved the molten droplets from the surface of the object when it was exposed to the immense heat from the fireball that surrounded it as a result of its friction on air. And we found that the composition of the droplets that came along the meteor path is extrasolar, different from what we find on Earth, the Moon, Mars, or asteroids.
For decades, mankind has been fascinated by the prospect of life elsewhere in the universe. Research Director at Localities, Martin Lampert, is a cross-cultural researcher and has been investigating global attitudes in relation to extraterrestrials. Why is there a fascination in UFOs and a desire to discover the truth in society?
We did this survey in 24 countries in 2017 already, and well, I was quite surprised by the results because almost 1 in 2 people globally, 47% actually, believe in the existence of intelligent alien civilizations elsewhere in the universe. And 6 in 10 people globally say there must exist some kind of life elsewhere in the universe. And there are only minorities globally who rule this out. 17% globally who say, well, no, there is no other form of life in the universe. And the universe is so immense. And there are many scientists who also say that, yeah, the existence of life elsewhere, it's very hard to rule it out. We looked into the profiles of those people who believe in the existence of alien life, and they are more open-minded. They believe in technological progress. They are very much interested in art and culture. They also believe that things are interconnected in a holistic way of thinking. And they also have an anti-authoritarian mindset. So they resonate with the archetype of the rebel. And they plead for transparency. So it's a very consistent profile that these people have throughout the world.
Footage released by the Pentagon appears unexplainable, but it also points to a possible security concern.
I think the nightmare scenario is that this is adversary aerospace tech being operated in our airspace with total impunity because people are saying, oh, it's UFOs, and we ignore that. So what if these things are Chinese probes gathering intelligence? We saw that, of course, with the spy balloon earlier this year. And we know these things exist. Now, that was drifting on the wind, but what if they have other projects which are a little bit more high tech? And what if they've got away with this for years because everyone has had this kind of bureaucratic, closed-minded, it can't be so it isn't view of UFOs, and thus they've thrown out the baby with the bathwater?
The stigma must be removed because apparently objects that are not identified at the moment could be a potential national security risk. And from the point of view of the government, we need to understand each and every one of them just to make sure that they are not used for espionage or pose other security risks to essential assets, national assets. But from a scientific point of view, it's sufficient to have 1 in a million, which is not from this earth, not a living object like a bird, not a human-made object like a drone, a balloon, an airplane, but something that is technologically manufactured from another civilization. And in that case, it would have a huge impact on the future of humanity and on our understanding of space. We would realize that we have a partner out there, that we are not alone. And just like having a partner in our daily life, it could change the meaning of our existence. It could inspire us to venture into space. It could teach us of new technologies and scientific insights that we are not aware of. And that's why it's worth the investment. It's a high risk, high reward endeavor, and it belongs to the mainstream of science, the same way that the search for dark matter, what most of the matter in the universe is still ongoing after decades of searches and investment of billions of dollars. In the case of studying unidentified objects in the sky, there was no funding allocated by the government to scientific research on this. And the Galileo project that I'm leading is funded by donations. But I do think that it belongs to the mainstream of science because the public cares a lot about it, the government cares a lot about it, and it's about time that scientists will get high quality data and figure out the nature of these objects. And if we find that they're all from this earth, so be it, we can move on to other things.
Last month, 2 alleged non-human mummified corpses discovered in Peru were presented to Mexican Congress. The so-called bodies were tested and found no clear signs of assembly and are to undergo DNA tests in a story that has captured people's imaginations.
I mean, it's bizarre and surreal. I think it's more likely this is going to turn out to be actual mummified children or some sort of hoax or a bit of both. People have talked about a hodgepodge of human and animal bones with a bit of model making thrown in. I don't know. Let's see what the science says on all this. I think we do need DNA tests. We do need, and not just somebody saying the DNA tests have been done. We need it written up in a peer-reviewed scientific paper that's going to be published then in one of the top journals like Science or Nature. And if that happens, I'll be a little surprised. If this turned out to be true, it would be the biggest story of all time. So obviously we've got a little way to go before we actually get our hands on that smoking gun. But and it may not be through these mummies, it may be through the UAP data. But I think we're getting closer and closer. This whole subject has come out of the fringe and into the mainstream in the last few years, particularly in the United States.
I think it's very unlikely that biological creatures would travel in interstellar space because it's a very hazardous environment with cosmic rays bombarding the body of such creatures. And for example, humans cannot survive for more than a year or two without protection. And that's why settling on the surface of Mars is very risky. If we ever go there, we will have to go into caves that protect us from the cosmic rays and from the extreme variations in temperatures between day and night on Mars. And so I imagine that if there will ever be a functional device that visits us, it will be equipped with artificial intelligence rather than with a brain like us.
It's clear the United States is leading the way when it comes to investigating unidentified objects in the sky. But in the United Kingdom, over 500 sightings of UFOs were recorded last year alone, according to a number of reports. Is it time for the UK to open an investigation into these reports?
It is time for the UK to get back in the game. We need, firstly, within the Ministry of Defense, a unit like the Pentagon's Arrow unit. In fact, they should be talking to them and setting up something with almost identical terms of reference and methodology. Arrow can help with this, so we should listen. But also, there does need to be something from the public, because we shouldn't be in the business of ignoring data. If we just say we'll take reports from our own pilots, military officers, radar operators, air traffic controllers, we'll be missing 98% of what's going on. So there needs to be a way of getting the public citing. Sure, you can then filter it with AI or however you do it, machine learning. So, but there are things that I fear are being missed here in our airspace. Objects with speeds, maneuvers, and accelerations that go way beyond our own. I don't know if they'll turn out to be Chinese or extraterrestrial or neither or both. But if we don't look and do a proper assessment, we won't figure any of it out. One of the reasons for UAP secrecy, I think, is technology acquisition. The nation that first gets their hands on extraterrestrial technology, if that's what we're dealing with, is going to have a huge advantage. And almost any technology that involves, as this almost certainly would, high amounts of energy can be weaponized. Do we really want China, Russia, Iran, North Korea getting that sort of thing? No. So there are reasons for secrecy. And also, if this has been kept secret for many years, as a lot of people allege, even if you would not disclose the tech, you would think there'd be no reason why you couldn't say, look, we're not alone, but we can't go into details of the technology because that would help an adversary. But they don't say that. So if it's true, I wonder, is there something about this, something with a real dark side that prevents governments from sharing this with the people? Is it something that would shatter world religions, collapse our sense of who we are and what our place is in the universe?